Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to look at the past, present, and future of the crypto markets in order to answer the following question. How to find a liquid 100x plus investment in crypto, specifically in size and with high probability. This presentation will focus on micro, not macro. What does micro mean in this context? That means we're going to be specifically discussing asset selection. We're not going to be talking about cycle timing, central banking activity, or the state of the global economy. We're specifically going to talk about coin picking. We are going to be focused on the relatively established assets as we don't want to gamble. We want to be relatively systematic and logical with our investments. Nothing presented here is financial advice and is purely an expression of my personal opinion. So first of all, what have been some of the parabolic 50x plus, 100x plus moves in crypto history? We had the famous BTC run towards the end of 2013. We had the famous BTC run towards the end of 2017. We had a very famous Ethereum parabola, which finished in January 2018. You know, Dash and Tron in 2017 did great. XRP from 2016 to 2018 did amazing. You had the Link run up between 2018 and 2021. You had the famous Sol close to 100x, I believe, in 2021. You know, AVAX 100x in 2021. Phantom almost 2000x last cycle. Doge was a incredibly popular parabola in 2021. SHIB did incredibly well towards the end of 2021, and so on and so forth, right? So what are we trying to do here? What we're trying to do here is to answer the following question. What are some of the things that these parabolas have had in common, right? What are some of the factors that they share that we can hypothesize contributed greatly towards their not only parabolic, but also a very rapid rise? We're going to be discussing 17 factors that are driving parabolic crypto asset growth. So first things first, and personally, I consider this to be by far the most important factor. It is having a cult-like community. Crypto cults resemble emerging internet mini religions, which frankly, in my opinion, is the single most bullish factor that not just a crypto token, but really any financial instrument can have. Achieving a cult status provides a number of beneficial and powerful dynamics to the coin. People make the coin their whole identity. Essentially, the goal is to build an army that takes over the internet. People are unlikely to dabble and trade with other coins or even trade in general. The community becomes a second family for holders. You get what we call free cult labor, which is essentially a fancy way of saying community members working for the coin for free or near free. You have high emotional resonation. You have high inspiration per capita. You have a high sense of meaning. And all of the above makes it much more likely for holders to not only diamond hand, but also evangelize. The collective's mission becomes more important than an individual's profit. You also get lower turnover, you get high stickiness, you get high loyalty. Essentially, people join and they don't leave. And ultimately, you get a high percentage of people that hodl the asset, which ultimately is the key to crypto success. What are some of the best examples from history for this particular factor? In my opinion, it is BTC, arguably the strongest cult in crypto history, if not in the history of finance. You have XRP, you have Link, which was kind of a crazy cult between 2018 and 2021. You have Doge, which was a very powerful community in the 2021 cycle. And you have GME, which was also a crazy, crazy powerful community in late 2020, early 2021. Okay. Factor 2, the coin should be new to the cycle. Historically, crypto assets that are new to the current cycle, essentially coins that were created in the last 2 to 3 years, they tend to outperform assets that have already existed in the past cycles. This kind of folk wisdom is popularized by the oft-quoted crypto adage, long the new coins, don't long the old coins. And the explanation behind the power of this factor is quite simple. You have more hope, you have fewer backholders from past cycles that can show up and sell on the way up. You have no resistances or quote-unquote supply zones at higher levels. There's no memory of high prices, and all the new highs are highs for the first time, which is fundamentally more exciting. And ultimately, this story, the story of a new coin, it hasn't been widely heard yet. It hasn't made its way through the earth, right? When you compare it to a crypto asset that has already been in the market for the past 10 years. What are some good examples of this? Ethereum in 2016, 2017, Tron in late 2017, Solana in late 2020, Axie in 2020, early 2021, SHIB in late 2020, etc. These coins were new to the cycle, and that certainly added to the power of their rise. Factor 3, the coin represents a new category in crypto. A new category is fundamentally more exciting. It activates new neurochemical pathways in the minds of investors. It is a fresh narrative. It does not feel derivative, like only a minor improvement over something that has already existed in the past. It feels disruptive, it feels innovative, and it can reach new demographics which previously were not a part of the crypto markets. I also believe it better lends itself to speculation, belief, and very high ceilings. And also, it's hard to, when you're representing a new category, it's hard to find comparables from past cycles. What are some good examples of this? Again, BTC. It effectively created the neo gold or the neo store of value category. Ethereum pioneered the smart contracts category. Synthetics was one of the earliest DeFi plays. Axie Infinity was last cycle the unquestioned GameFi leader. And Helium, aka HNT, was kind of the main play of the decentralized physical infrastructure narrative. Factor 4, the coin is the category leader. Crypto markets are notoriously winner take most due to network effects. And most investors, naturally at the behavioral economics level, they want to pile into the winner. They want to pile into the category leader. Winners keep winning. Outperformers continue to outperform. As people jokingly say, betas long betas, alphas long the leader. Beta assets or catch-up assets, they simply do not have this special sauce that causes the leader to outperform in the first place. If you have been following the extreme asset dispersion this cycle, I believe this has become even more pronounced this cycle compared to 2021. In 2021, a lot more coins were outperforming BTC. In the past 2 and 3 years, fewer and fewer assets outperform BTC every year. And some good examples of this, again, BTC, unquestionable category leader in the store of value category. Ethereum, to this day, is the kind of the winner take most category leader of the smart contracts race. Dogecoin last cycle was the unquestioned leader of the meme coin narrative. You know, again, Axie Infinity was the leader and the biggest coin of the GameFi narrative, and Decentraland, aka Mana, was the leader of the metaverse, quote unquote, metaverse narrative. Factor 5. I've always said this, and I've talked about this many times before. Parabolas are more likely to happen in assets that are difficult to value. Now, what do I mean by this? And often, by the way, often this goes hand in hand with kind of the previous factor we discussed, which is being a new category. Traditional equities, or even assets that have revenues or dividends, they have established valuation methodologies and valuation metrics, price to earnings, EV to EBITDA, price to sales, EV to sales. You know, you have DCF, FCF, NPV, etc., right? And oftentimes, the best performing crypto assets, particularly in the case of new and emerging crypto categories, they have no established frameworks by which to value them, right? And I have always considered this a big advantage. Why? Because in late capitalism, no revenue actually gives you more optionality. This is also a big reason why, contrary to most crypto investors, I strongly prefer crypto assets that do not produce or even aim to produce any revenue. In late capitalism, no revenue gives you more optionality. Value comes in many forms, not just dividends or revenues, and intangible value that is difficult to value using traditional methodologies resists kind of traditional valuation attempts. Once again, Parabolas are more likely to occur in assets that are weird, new, and misunderstood. What are some good examples of this? Early BTC, no one knew how to value this. Do we value this as a payment network? Do we value this as a gold replacer? Do we value this as something else entirely? And I believe this was an inherent advantage. Frankly, it still is an inherent advantage, which contributes towards BTC rising faster and accepting a lot of speculative flows, which many of which ultimately become holders, investors, and believers. Ethereum, nobody knew how to value smart contracts early on. Is it going to be the silver to BTC? Is it going to be the world computer? Is it going to be programmable oil, etc.? To this day, people debate how to value it properly. Dogecoin in 2021, with massive social media presence, do we value it as another kind of cryptocurrency number 5? Do we value it as an online digital cult? Do we value it as a movement that is kind of making fun of the seriousness of the crypto space? I believe that played towards an advantage. XRP, do we value it as a currency? Do we value it as a payment system, as a SWIFT replacer? Nobody knows, and that ambivalence played to its advantage. And GME as well, in 2020, 2021, pretty sure people knew that its rise wasn't solely attributed to GME's revenues, but rather to the giant collective of supporters online that essentially all simply agreed to diamond hand and to invest and to believe for as long as they can. Factor number 6. People often ask me, how do you build a loyal community? And I tell them, you make poor people rich. That's it. That's the most important factor. More precisely, you have to kind of look for the following situation. Is the coin already making a significant number of retail participants so far this cycle wealthier? In my opinion, the key to build a powerful retail community is to make lower middle class, and upper middle class people 10x richer. And many of these people will become full-time evangelists for the coin. This is how you build virality. This is how you build a strong foundation. Bonus points, in my opinion, if the coin makes people richer gradually rather than all at once. Because when you kind of all come together on a journey, on an adventure, you develop lore, you develop inside jokes, memes, you develop battle scars that you are not only proud of, but also you remember fondly later on. And it's just much more exciting to do this slowly, steadily, and gradually, rather than all kind of in a single second. In my opinion, in general, with few exceptions, ultra wealthy people are useful, but are often more cynical and less loyal to a cause, as they have a more diversified array of fun things going on in their life. They don't need to spiritually go all into a single community. This is why I believe on the retail side, it's the lower middle classes, middle class, upper middle class participants that actually represent the greatest source of value. I believe this is the ultimate use case of crypto and blockchain technology. To combine technology, memetics, social media, and a financial asset in order to create social Schelling points which redistribute a slice of global wealth to early adopters and believers. The other way to think of it is, in my opinion, the purpose of crypto is to essentially bring forward selective UBI. What are some great examples of this? Bitcoin made a lot of its early Bitcoin talk supporters very wealthy. And a lot of them to this day are lifelong supporters and evangelists of BTC. XRP, I believe the reason it pumped once again in 2024 is because the people that invested in 2016, 2017, they, to this day, are sitting on large unrealized profits, and in their mind, it's going to go much higher. They continue to stay loyal throughout all these years. Dogecoin, a lot of their early supporters were already wealthy by the time late 2020 came about. So during the 2020-2021 parabola, Dogecoin became their full-time thing. GME made a lot of early participants wealthy, and they just became full-time supporters as the parabola was happening. And Hype this cycle is a good example. It made a lot of the early users very wealthy, and I believe that 30 to 40% of Hype's valuation is driven by this intense community loyalty, even to this day. Number 7, the coin which lends itself to extensive social media posts, photos, and videos is going to be at a great advantage. I'm going to do another video on this later, but my theory is that the further we go into late fiat capitalism and money printing in general, the less fundamentals will matter and the more sustained attention and collective spiritual belief will matter. My theory is that traditional style fundamentals will return back to being in vogue post-hyper-Bitcoinization when we're actually operating in a deflationary economy, and that's when it will be time for you to wipe the dust off of your Benjamin Graham books. Financial assets right now, in my opinion, are becoming less about dividend-related fundamentals and more about memetics and effectively acting as financialized vessels of dissatisfaction around which retail participants can coalesce, not only to make a statement, but also participate in new financialized movements. If my theory is correct, then, again, assets which are better suited to producing a variety of social media content are at a huge advantage. Think about it. For example, for me, I'm not really that excited to pitch or shill a DeFi infrastructure play or a governance token to somebody on the street or my family member. It's just boring, frankly, right? Their memetics are weak, they're not spicy, they're not youthful, they're not energizing, they're not dynamic, they're not crazy, they're not inspiring, right? I believe the market wants something crazier. What are some examples of this? Bitcoin early days, Chainlink, which completely took over 4chan and other platforms in 2019, 2020. Dogecoin, which was all over social media in 2020, 2021. Again, GameStop was all over Reddit, was all over other platforms. And SHIB, which took over several social media platforms in 2020, 2021 as well. Factor number 8, parabolic growth hasn't happened yet. In blunt terms, effectively, the asset is still unpumped. The 1 billion to 100 billion space has still not been explored. Essentially, you want to buy assets where the giant global scale parabola has not yet occurred. You want to be long altcoins that haven't experienced meteoric growth above tens of billions in the past. No backholders from past parabolas, and the first fresh parabola is always most exciting. You want to join communities that can go parabolic but still haven't. I believe this is the most lucrative and the highest probability strategy in crypto. Some examples of this, once again, Ethereum in 2016, early 2017, Chainlink in 2019, Solana in 2020, Dogecoin in 2020, you get the idea. Factor number 9, you want to focus on coins that are focused on a large total addressable market. Just like a VC analyzing a potential startup investment, you as a crypto asset investor want to focus on large total addressable market caps. Again, most utility coins have relatively small total addressable market caps. I don't need to teach you this, I'm sure you understand. And I also think deflationary nature of the AI future will further act as a headwind even to the revenue producing assets in crypto. Again, I believe that non-revenue producing coins have significantly bigger total addressable market caps in the context of our AI-driven future. Simply put, you want to focus on crypto assets that are going after large markets. Again, examples of this: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, BNB, Hype, and as of recently, privacy coins and early equity in stablecoin providers, if you could get your hands on that. Factor number 10. So it's very important, in my opinion, to have a narrative that appeals to retail. Why? Because rapid 50x, 100x type moves, they're not caused by giant institutions. They are caused by retail and to a lesser extent by smaller, agile, aggressive institutions. This means that for a 50x, 100x type repricing to occur, the core narrative of the asset needs to deeply appeal and emotionally resonate with retail investors. Why? The more emotional resonation triggered by an asset, the more loyalty, evangelism, free cut labor, and social media activity you will generate. You have to remember, retail participants outnumber institutional participants 1,000 to 1. And retail participants can win by leaning harder on social media. In fact, I think that's the only way for retail people to win. If you don't want to gamble, if you don't want to trade, Your correct strategy is to unite together with other people, lean harder on social media to create countercultural mimetic movements. Again, what are some examples of this? Early Bitcoin, XRP, Doge, GME, Axie Infinity. You get the idea. Factor 11, ambitious targets. Ambitious targets, in my opinion, are an incredibly important factor. You know, the higher the community target, the higher the eventual result. As they famously say, shoot for the stars, end up at the moon. The higher your ambition, the more hodling you're going to get, the more diamond handing you're going to get, the more the mission is long lasting, the more patience you're going to have in the community. And the community is going to instinctively understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And that's ultimately how you get sustainable successes in crypto. Some examples of this, once again, BTC, trying to replace all money in the world. We know that's a 200 trillion plus market. That's incredibly inspiring and huge. Ethereum, if it becomes a world computer, who knows how big that can get. XRP, they want to go to $469. That's an ambitious target, regardless of whether you think that's realistic or not. SHIB, famous Doge killer, that's what made it go to 50 billion plus, or one of the reasons, at least in my opinion. Hype, want to house all of finance. Again, a very big market. Factor number 12, supply constriction. Supply constriction is bullish, simple as. It causes fewer coins to be in circulation in practice. It eliminates sell pressure after pumps. Ultimately, it requires less total buying for the coin to go up. And there are two ways to do it. You can do it the honest way, which is build a decentralized cult of diamond hands with very ambitious targets. Or you can do it the dishonest way, which is a centralized team who directly or indirectly control 80% of the supply. If you know, you know. I really prefer not to speak. You get the idea. Some examples of this in history. Bitcoin, I believe they diamond-handed in an honest way by creating the right culture. You had Tron in 2017, 2018, or frankly even to this day. XRP, SHIB, GME, etc. Right? Some of these did it through pure culture of diamond handing. Others did it through other means, but ultimately supply constriction is a very bullish factor. Factor number 13. A coin develops a DCA culture. DCA culture creates a permanent bid on the asset. This is bullish as there is effectively a consistent mechanical TWAP buying of the asset every day. This limits the downside and also builds a strong foundation for a parabolic move. Effectively, the holders consistently channel their blood, sweat, and tears, their money, their time, their energy into the asset. Some examples of this is the stock market, Bitcoin, and gold, which all developed a robust DCAing or indexing cultures. Factor 14, one I think that's relatively underappreciated, is the community developing a tipping culture. I believe this is very underrated. I think it can massively turbocharge internal loyalty, atmosphere, and vibes in the community. It makes the community feel like a second family. It makes community members feel appreciated. The gesture is often more meaningful than even the raw amount. And Doge famously developed an extensive tipping culture in the community, even prior to the arrival of Elon Musk. I think the best examples of this in crypto history are Dogecoin and BTC. Factor 15. This is having external trends as tailwinds. A crypto asset possesses a great advantage, in my opinion, if there are a number of trends occurring outside of crypto that stand to be continuous tailwinds for that specific crypto asset. Very obvious and kind of surface level examples are monetary debasement consistently benefiting BTC or bank closures benefiting privacy coins. What are some of the best examples of this in history? I would say Bitcoin, gold, and GME. Factor number 16. This, some would argue, is less important than others, but for me personally, it's very important. This is essentially an asset being a resistance asset rather than a compliance asset. What is the difference? A compliance asset, when you're buying it, you're essentially strengthening the existing system, right? While a resistance asset, you're trying to build something new, create a new store of value. You're essentially trying to route around the system and create new financial platforms, financial assets, monetary assets, etc. I think this is quite important because I frankly believe that in the long run, resistance assets are going to win. I think both God and the streets are on the side of resistance assets. And I believe that even me personally, it's just much more exciting to be a part of something new rather than being a part of something old. And finally, we come to factor 17, which I would pragmatically argue is the most important or the second most important factor. And this is this coin outperforming BTC this cycle so far? Is this coin outperforming BTC this year so far, right? Because here's the thing, right? Why would you be buying an altcoin, let alone holding it for 3+ years, if it's not even beating BTC, which is much safer, much more liquid, much more established? You're essentially wasting time. You want to be focusing on strong momentum. You want to be focusing on buying strength. You want to be providing additional strength to what is already strong. You want to focus on assets that have already been performing well in the years or months prior to right now. You want to focus on assets that have been beating BTC over the past couple of years. Otherwise, you're essentially, again, holding a riskier, smaller asset that's not even outperforming the safer giant. And you're what are you doing? You're effectively praying for an old school alt season or a round of 2021 style central bank stimulus to bail you out. This is not a good strategy. You have to buy what is already strong with or without you. More on this later. So putting this all together, right? We have a list of factors that can help create a parabolic growth. Once again, let's look at all of them. You want to be focused on cult-like communities. You want to be focused on coins new to this cycle. You want to be focused on coins that represent a new category. You want to be focused on category leaders. You want to be focused on crypto assets that are difficult to value. You want to be focused on things that make retail rich or is in the process of already making retail people richer. They become your loyal supporters. You want to focus on coins that have the potential of going viral on social media, that lend themselves to massive amounts of social media material. You want to focus on coins that still have not experienced global-wide parabolic growth yet. You want to focus on large markets. You want to focus on narratives that will appeal to retail at the emotional level. You want to focus on coins and communities that have very, very ambitious, borderline delusional targets. You want to focus on coins that have some level of supply constriction. You want to focus on coins with a DCA culture, with a tipping culture. You want to focus coins that will have continuous multi-month, better yet multi-year tailwinds. You want to focus on coins that are a part of the resistance assets. And last but not least, you want to focus coins that already, right now, have very strong momentum. So what is our goal here? Our goal here is to find altcoins that satisfy as many of these factors as possible to maximize our probability of winning in the coming months and years. We come back to the last factor, right? Because this is, I think, is the second or the first most important factor, and this is where you're going to be sourcing your investment candidates from. I think this is the smart play. Again, buy what's already strong. So before we delve into the assets that are outperforming this year and this cycle in general so far, I would like to remember a tweet that I tweeted earlier this year, January 25th of this year. That's almost 10 months ago. So I said, there will not be an alt season, right? I said, not in 2025. This industry has changed, in my opinion, permanently. The rate of new coins produced per day will continue to increase. This train only runs in one direction. And so two things will happen. On one side, you're going to continue to have extreme hyper gambling. Frankly, I think it's a futile game. And on the other, you're going to have a handful of cults that will super spike to 100 billion plus. And you essentially have to choose part of which alliance you want to be in. Do you want to be a degenerate gambler or do you want to be a believer/investor? And I think you have a much higher probability of winning on the latter side. And so when I tweeted this, I distinctly remember that I got a lot of hate and vitriol for this post. If you don't believe me, you can go check out the comments, you can go check out quote retweets, and it's gotten a lot more hate than usual, right? And actually, believe it or not, to this day, I continue reading almost all of the comments and quote retweets that I get on my posts. And I use that to effectively gauge sentiment. And I take note of my posts that get either more hate or more love than is kind of the median, right? Because when I get more hate or more love than the median, it tells me something. It tells me that this has been controversial, this maybe is contrarian, the community is feeling another way, and I think it's very important, and it's sending a signal. Now, a lot of people called me an idiot for saying this. Now, was I right or was I wrong about this prediction, about whether there will be or there won't be an alt season 2025? I'm sure you know the answer, but we'll see in the coming slides. Again, gotta focus on the outperformers, right? So what do we have here? This, by the way, this is data as of Monday, October 13th. I'm recording this several days after the crash we had on Friday, right? You only have 12 coins that are outperforming BTC this cycle so far, at least among the top 100 coins. Would you call this an alt season? I would certainly not. This is not an alt season. This is something else. Again, I've said this for the past 18 months. This is actually a sign of the industry maturing. Actually, in 2024, I believe you had 25 coins that outperformed BTC. And right now, you have half the amount of coins. You have 12 coins that are outperforming BTC, which actually means that even between 2025 and 2024, the crypto industry continues to mature. Now, what trends are you seeing? You want to focus on things that are already strong. You want to focus on things that are category leaders. You want to focus on things that have been outperforming so far. You want to be focusing on things that are sort of getting this disproportional amount of cult-like community sentiment behind it. Essentially, I believe that alt seasons of the past are dead. And instead, you need to think in a different way. We'll talk about that right now. Again, which altcoins satisfy as many of these factors as possible? Your task as a crypto investor is the following, in my opinion. You have to figure out which coins can realistically go to 100 billion plus, right? 2, you have to figure out which coins satisfy as many of our factors as possible. And you have to buy, hodl, DCA, evangelize, and contribute to the mission. Instead of praying and hoping for an alt season, this is what you should be doing. Essentially, you should pick a community and you should become an active part of it. This is how you win. The game has changed. Praying for a wide-ranging alt season is not only unwise, but also simply represents your lack of agency. This leads to what is becoming, in my opinion, the next stage of crypto, and frankly, the next stage of investing in general. Something I call participatory investing. A form of investing where you not only just invest, but you actually invest and actively contribute to the asset's success. Instead of praying for an alt season, you need to be buying existing strength. You need to find what I call sticky momentum. You effectively need to add fuel to the existing fire. So what do we have here? We have 12 coins that have outperformed BTC this year so far. And by the way, we're already in the fourth quarter, right? The year we're 10 and a half months into a 12-month year. So what's the game theory here? In my opinion, you need to join one of these, and that's essentially going to be your team. And you have to do as much as you can to help this team succeed. I believe that SPX 6900 is the coin in the top 100 that is best positioned for upcoming mania. And I will explain why. So you can clearly see right now on this slide, SPX 6900 is the only coin in the entire universe of crypto assets that has outperformed BTC in 2023. It has outperformed BTC in 2024. And once again, it's outperforming BTC by a factor of 2 in 2025 year to date. There is not a single asset that has done this in the entirety of the crypto world. I challenge you to find another asset like this. You will not be able to. There are some assets that have done this for 1 year. There is a handful of assets that have done it for 2 years in a row. And only SPX 6900 is outperforming BTC 3 years in a row. And it's only just above 1 billion market cap. There's something special going on here, and I believe this should be a huge signal for you. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the factors that I listed, and we will see whether SPX satisfies these factors or not. So factor 1, a cult-like community. For those of you that have been on Twitter, I'm sure you understand that SPX 6900 is by far the strongest, cultiest, and the most passionate community among all the coins created this cycle. This can be seen objectively and mathematically on-chain via diamond-handedness, full-portedness, mean investment, median investment, percentage of holders above 1K, 10K, 100K, etc. And I believe this can also be seen subjectively if you simply scroll social media, if you look at our videos, if you look at our art, if you look at the amount of people that are trying to onboard people on the streets. I believe this is about to go parabolic even more. And it's only just getting started. So we satisfy factor 1. Factor 2, the coin is new to the cycle. SPX was created in August 2023. I believe 2023 is the perfect year for us to see a parabola in late 2025, early 2026. SPX was created this cycle. I believe 99.999% of the world hasn't heard this story yet. And I believe that 2023 coins have an advantage over the coins created more recently because you need some time, like a landing strip for a plane. You need some time for the coin to develop culture, community, lore, inside jokes, memetics, rituals, spiritual buy-in, listings, etc. So we're satisfying this factor as well. Factor number 3, the coin represents a new category. SPX 6900 is the first ever movement coin. This is a completely new category that I believe is not well understood by the market. We are entering a new stage where these assets represent the tokenization of pure concept, tokenization of belief, tokenization of ideology. You're already seeing bloggers start to talk about the rise of the ideological investor. There is no asset that represents this trend more cleanly than SPX 6900. SPX 6900 is a financial, spiritual, and memetic vehicle which is a cultural counterreaction against rapidly growing wealth inequality in society and slopification of the world. The core sentiment that fundamentally drives the power of SPX 6900 will only get stronger with time due to the extremely winner-take-all nature of techno-capitalism. Factor 4, coin is the category leader. SPX 6900 is not only the leader among meme coins, it's more importantly the leader among the category it created, movement coins. Factor 5, assets that are difficult to value. SPX 6900 is once again the first ever movement coin. How do you value a movement? How do you value a memetic concept? There's no established formulas, frameworks, or methodologies to do this. I believe this is a strong advantage, especially in the context of late capitalism, as there isn't a single metric to tell you whether it's overvalued, undervalued, etc. The mission can simply continue persisting until trillions. Factor 6, the asset is already making retail richer. Many SPX 6900 believers are sitting on 10x, 50x, and even 100x returns. It is the #1 coin in terms of people sitting on untouched, unrealized gains. This is a signal that the collective holders envision and believe in much, much greater heights for this asset. Factor 7, the coin lends itself to extensive social media material. If you've been on social media, you've already seen how crazy and how powerful the SPX 6900 community is. They're writing books, they're onboarding people on the streets, they're writing blogs, they're creating countless memes, they're evangelizing everywhere. Right? YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, Twitter, everywhere. Factor number 8, parabolic growth hasn't happened yet. Despite developing what I believe to be the most robust, fascinating, and hyper-loyal culture in all of crypto this cycle, SPX 6900 is still sitting at a modest 1 billion market cap. To put it bluntly, the global parabolic mega pump hasn't happened yet. You want to be buying altcoins that haven't had that parabolic growth before, rather than those which already have. I believe the road to 100 billion plus and beyond is ahead of us. Factor number 9, a large total addressable market. Many people debate, what is the biggest TAM? Is it energy? Is it food? Is it money? I actually believe that the biggest market in the world is the market to reduce psychological suffering. That is the ultimate purpose of the capitalist system, to produce goods and services that make you feel better at the emotional level. It doesn't matter that you can't physically touch a certain thing. It is nevertheless gigantic, even if invisible. The market of belief, community, and spirituality is one of the biggest markets in the world, and its tokenized form will only grow bigger. Factor number 10, narrative that appeals to retail. Has there ever been a crazier, more inspiring, and a more insane narrative in crypto history than flip the stock market? No. It is the most ambitious and the most outside of the box concept created in crypto over a decade. Retail, which consistently gets shafted by institutions, central banks, employers, exchanges, corporations, will only grow more and more inspired by the concept of flipping the stock market as the community continues to grow. DeFi Report had some interesting things to say about this. Regarding SPX 6900, there's broad addressable interest. SPX 6900 is trying to flip the stock market. Now, you may think it's silly, but it's appealing to younger generations globally who are struggling to get ahead in life. They feel left out. The SPX 6900 meme strikes a deep emotional chord and bonding in the community. Community ethos, flip the stock market, stop trading and believe in something. Eons, there is no chart, I love you. DCA every day. Again, you may think that this is all silly, but these slogans mean something to the community. They signal to others that you're one of us while providing a sense of belonging. It doesn't matter what you think personally. As an investor, you have to figure out, is a critical mass of people going to coalesce around these concepts? And I believe the answer is yes. Delusional belief and absurd price targets. When you look back at the early days of Bitcoin, SPX 6900 has a lot of similarities. Mainly a small but growing subset of people on the internet with delusional beliefs, a big idea, and a strong community. And it's not even small at this point, it's 215,000 people and growing. Factor number 11, ambitious targets. The target of SPX 6900 community is $69 trillion. Enough said. The higher the community target, the higher the eventual result. Factor number 12, supply constriction. SPX 6900 is number one in terms of whale diamond-handedness, above 50% holdings. It is number one in whale retention, above 75% of holdings. It is number one in minnow, aka upper middle class retention, above 50% holdings. It is number one in minnow retention, above 75% holdings. It is number one in terms of the percentage of holders, above 1K. It is number one in terms of percentage holders above 10K. It is number one in terms of percentage of holders above 100K. It is number one in terms of percentage of holders below $100. Essentially, you want as few of these as possible. It is number one in terms of median investments. It is number one in terms of average investments. Factor number 13, DCA culture. SPX is the only coin with a daily DCA culture, just like BTC early on. Factor number 14, tipping culture. SPX 6900 has the most developed tipping culture among all coins of this cycle, and it's not even close. Factor 15, external trends as tailwinds. Literally every trend that exists in the real world today is a tailwind to SPX 6900. Are they printing more? Bullish SPX 6900. Is the income and wealth inequality growing? Bullish SPX 6900. Are people losing their jobs? Bullish SPX 6900. Is loneliness up? Bullish SPX 6900. Is mental health down? Bullish SPX 6900. No family, no partner, bullish SPX 6900. Slopification of crypto and the world at large, bullish SPX 6900. People looking for the next Doge and the next GME, bullish SPX 6900. Gazillions of new crypto coins created every day, bullish SPX 6900. You want to be a part of something that is outperforming BTC? Bullish SPX 6900. Tired of boomers and what they've done to your country? Bullish SPX 6900. No sense of meaning, belonging, and mission in your life? Bullish SPX 6900. Graduated from university and can't find a job still? Bullish SPX 6900. Can't afford a house? Bullish SPX 6900. And so on and so forth. Again, literally every trend that exists in the outside world is a tailwind to SPX 6900. We come back to our concept of resistance assets versus compliance assets. One of the big reasons why people love SPX 6900 is because it reminds them of BTC in the early days. It is a clear-cut example, one of the few remaining assets that are clearly in the resistance camp. Instead of simply supporting existing financial system, it represents a group of people that are trying to route around it. And we come back to factor number 17. Is the asset outperforming this cycle so far? And again, we can see, once again, SPX is the only coin that's beating BTC in 2023, it's beating BTC in 2024, and that is beating BTC in 2025 year to date. There's no other asset like this. I believe this will continue. And for the sake of interest, I also created a table that compares which of the coins that are outperforming BTC this cycle so far satisfy most of these coins. And you can see, in my personal opinion, SPX is the only one that satisfies every single one of these parameters while still only trading at just above 1 billion market cap. I believe this asset is going to 100 billion plus in the medium term and close to 1 trillion in the long term. This is your time to get involved. Stop trading and believe in something. SPX 6900, we're here to flip the stock market. Join the movement.